Welcome to s.st June. Students, today we are going to start our history next chapter, which is chapter 3, ruling the countryside. Chapter ruling the countryside is based upon the system which was started by the Britishers and the rules and regulation. The chapter is based on the commercialization of India during the British period. This chapter will also tell to us about the contemporary condition of the peasants during the British period. In this chapter, we will study the following topics. The topic 1, the company becomes the Divan. Topic 2, crops for Europe. Topic 3, the Blue Rebellion and after. And the last topic is the conclusion of the chapter. So let's start our first topic of the chapter. The company becomes the Divan. On 12th August 1765, the Mughal emperor appointed the East India Company as the Divan of Bengal. The actual event most probably took place in Robert Clive's tent, with a few Englishmen and Indians as witness, as you can see in this given picture. After that, the Britishers were firmly become political masters from traders. They reaped huge profits as traders, and now the whole country was under their domain and they exploited it to the maximum. As Diwan, the company became the chief financial administrator of the territory under its control. Now it had to think of administering the land and organizing its revenue resources. This had to be done in a way that could yield enough revenue to meet the growing expenses of the company. A trading company had also to ensure that it could buy the products it needed and sell what it wanted. Means they took all the rights in their hand. The economic policies of the British government in India brought about many changes in agriculture, industry, and trade. The policies had a large and an adverse impact on the life of the Indian people, as their only aim was to promote British economic interest. Students, if you have seen the historical serials which were based on the British rule, you have ever seen what the Britishers doing with the peasants. They were collecting the revenues. The collection of revenue was in cash, which was earlier in kind. Secondly, they also forced thousands of villagers to cultivate cash crops. Cash crops means the crops which are giving the financial benefits as the cotton, indigo, sugarcane, these type of things. The interdependence of villages on one another made it easier for the British to rule them. It also helped the British to impose similar rules and regulations on every village. So, unlike the rulers of the ancient and medieval periods, they gave no supplies to the farmers due to their harsh taxation policies, many peasants left their villages while many became landless. When company understood the economic value of the cash crops, they start the improvements in the agriculture. So how they start? In 1793, company introduced a settlement which was known as the permanent settlement. By the terms of the settlements, the Rajas and Talukdars were recognized as Jamindars. They were asked to collect rent from the peasants and pay revenue to the company. The amount to be paid was fixed permanently. That is, it was not to be increased ever in future. It was felt that this would ensure a regular flow of revenue into the company's coffers and at the same time encourage the jamidars to invest in improving the land. Since the revenue demand of the state would not be increased, the jamidar would benefit from increased production from the land. How? The whatever the revenue which was asked by the company, the jamidars were paying them, and the rest amount means the revenue which they are collecting more than the company amount. So the rest of the amount they were keeping for themselves. So they also become wealthy. But after that, the problems were same. How? In Bengal, Bihar, and Odisha, the jamidars were the people who were entrusted with the task of collecting the revenue from a fixed area. A jamidar got his share from the same and paid the balance to the government. They were primarily collectors of revenue. In 1765, the company got Diwani, or the control over the revenues of Bengal, Bihar, and Odisha with the expansion of British conquest. The permanent settlement, which was introduced by Lord Cornwallis in 1793, soon led to many problems for the company. The revenue fixed earlier was so high that the jamidars could not pay it. Since the system of jamidari was not hereditary, they did not improve the conditions of the land. But by the beginning of the 19th century, the price in the market rose, leading to the expansion of cultivation. It led to an increase in the income of jamidars, but no gain for the company. In the villages, the cultivators were unhappy because of this oppressive system. The rent to be given to jamidars was too high, and their hold on the land was not permanent. For paying rent to the jamidar, the peasants had to take a loan from the moneylenders. If they failed to pay the rent, they had to forego land, which they had cultivated for generation. So after that, the company introduced a new system which is known as Mahalvari settlement. Here, the term Mahal means a village. Mahalvari settlement was introduced in the modern day Uttar Pradesh, certain parts of Madhya Pradesh, and Punjab by Holt Mackenzie in 1822. Under this system, The tax collectors first estimated the revenue after inspecting the fields. The revenue was then calculated for the entire village. The village lands were jointly held by the village community. All the members was jointly responsible for the payment of the revenue. However, this system only covered 5% of the cultivated land in the country. After Mahalvari system, one more new system was introduced by the Britishers. It was known as the Munro System. The Monroe System is also known as the Rayatwari settlement. The term Rayat means a peasant. As its name indicated, to some extent, this settlement was between the peasants or the Rayats at the East India Company. Rayatwari settlement was introduced by Thomas Munro in the Madras Presidency during 1820 to 27. Gradually, it was extended all over South India. Because it was introduced by Thomas Munro, so it was also known as the Monroe System. In this system, there were no intermediators like the jamidars between the peasants and the company. In this system, a peasant had to pay taxes even when his crops were destroyed. He became landless if he failed to pay the taxes, so he often depended on moneylenders. But after so many efforts of the Britishers, nothing was well. Within a few years after the new systems were imposed, it was clear that all was not well with them. The systems broke down because of the very high demand for revenue. Another reason was the rigidity in revenue collection. Even the British also realized that the countryside could not only yield revenue, it could also grow the crops that Europe required. So, let's see our next topic, crops for Europe. The Britishers encouraged the growth of cash crops, crops that were sold for cash. They wanted to provide raw materials to the Western markets in Europe. They brought cotton, tea, sugarcane, etc. at very low price from the farmers and exported them to England and reaped huge profits. The Industrial Revolution in England resulted in increasing demand for these raw materials. Also, increasing demand for some of the commercial crops in other foreign countries gave impetus to commercialization of agriculture. By the late 18th century, the company was trying its best to expand the cultivation of opium and indigo. In the century and a half that followed, the Britishers forced cultivators in various parts of India to produce other crops like jute in Bengal, tea in Assam, sugarcane in the United Provinces, now it is Uttar Pradesh, wheat in Punjab, cotton in Maharashtra and Punjab, rice in Madras. How was this done? The British used a variety of methods. to expand the cultivation of crops that they needed. So, how they grow the cash crops, what were the impacts of these works, we will know in our next video. Students, here I am providing you few terms which you have to do in your fair notebook. Term 1, revenue. Term 2, intermediary. Term 3, commercialization. Term 4, commercial crops. Term 5, permanent settlement. Term 6, Mahalvari settlement. And the term 7th is Munro System. Students, here the first part of the chapter is complete. Hope you understood this. For the next part of this chapter, keep watching s.st June.